Welcome to Revenge Central. Today I will read 2 crazy revenge stories. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing and let's get started with Story 1. The Neighbor Who Picked the Wrong House. I spent 22 years in military intelligence. Not the kind of work they make movies about, with car chases and explosions. My world was quieter than that. It was about patience, pattern recognition, and understanding that the most devastating operations are the ones the target never sees coming until it's far too late. I retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. My last posting was at Fort Huachuca, working in the Intelligence Center of Excellence. Before that, I'd done 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, and spent 4 years at the National Security Agency's Operations Center in Georgia. I'd been involved in counterintelligence, human intelligence collection, and signals intelligence analysis. None of that prepared me for Kevin Marsh. When I retired, I had a very specific vision for what I wanted. I wanted silence. I wanted a porch where I could drink my coffee in the morning and hear nothing but birds. I wanted a yard where I could grow tomatoes and read books on a hammock without a single interruption. After more than 2 decades of analyzing threat matrices, monitoring enemy communications, and writing intelligence assessments that could shift military operations, I wanted the most boring life imaginable. I found it in Willowbrook Estates, a subdivision in the western suburbs of Austin, Texas. The neighborhood was about 15 years old, with mature oak trees lining the streets, well-maintained sidewalks, and a homeowners association that took pride in keeping property values high. The lots were generous, half an acre each, which in Austin suburbs is practically a ranch. My house was a single-story ranch-style home, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, with an attached 2-car garage. It had been built in 2009 and had been owned by the same couple since. They'd maintained it meticulously. New roof in 2021, updated HVAC in 2022. The backyard was fenced with cedar and featured mature crepe myrtles along the back fence line. I paid $415,000 for it, which was fair market value for the area. I closed on a Thursday in March and moved in the following weekend. The neighbors were friendly in that suburban way. Waves from across the street, a casserole dish from the woman 2 doors down, a welcome packet from the HOA. The house to my left was owned by a retired couple named Gerald and Patricia Hoffman. Gerald had been an accountant for 30 years, and Patricia taught 2nd grade at the local elementary school. They were quiet, kind people who kept their yard immaculate and their voices low. The house to my right sat empty when I moved in. There was a for sale sign in the yard, and according to Gerald, the previous owners had relocated to Florida 6 months prior. The house was similar to mine, same floor plan, mirror reversed, and it sat on the same half-acre lot. I didn't think much about it. An empty house next door just meant more quiet, as far as I was concerned. Kevin Marsh moved in during the 2nd week of April. I remember the day clearly because it was a Saturday, and I was in my garage, organizing my tools on the pegboard I'd just installed. I heard the rumble of a large moving truck turning onto our street, Willow Creek Lane, a quiet cul-de-sac with 8 homes. The truck was followed by a black Dodge Ram 2500 with oversized tires and a lift kit that made it sit absurdly high off the ground. Kevin Marsh was approximately 44 years old. 6 feet tall, maybe 220 pounds, with the thick, deliberate build of a man who spent time in a gym but carried most of his weight in his midsection. He had a shaved head, a goatee that was more gray than brown, and the kind of confident stride that suggested he'd never once questioned whether he belonged anywhere he chose to be. His wife, Tammy, was perhaps 40. Slim, blonde highlights, yoga pants, oversized sunglasses perched on her head. She stood in the driveway with her arms crossed, directing the movers with the authority of a woman accustomed to being in charge. They had 2 children. A boy, maybe 16, and a girl, maybe 13. The boy had Kevin's build and his shaved head. The girl looked like her mother. Neither of them helped with the moving. The boy sat on the front porch, playing a game on his phone. The girl went inside immediately and closed the door. I walked over and introduced myself. That's what you do in the suburbs. I extended my hand and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm John. Just moved in last month myself." Kevin took my hand with a grip that was a little too firm and held it a beat too long. Kevin Marsh. Good to meet you. We're coming from Round Rock. Needed more space. Can't argue with that, I said. It's a quiet street. Good neighbors. Yeah, well, quiet's good, Kevin said, looking past me at his house as if he were already mentally rearranging everything inside it. I've got some plans for this place. Gonna do some renovations, add a pool, maybe build a detached garage in the back for my business. Oh yeah? What kind of business? I asked. Home security systems, Kevin said. I run KMW Security. Install cameras, alarms, whole home systems. I've got about 6 employees, mostly residential stuff. That's a solid business, I said. I meant it too. Home security is a growing market, especially in the Austin area. We'll see, Kevin said, already turning away. Lots to do. Nice meeting you, John. That was the entire conversation. Tammy didn't introduce herself. The kids didn't look up. I went back to my garage and didn't think much of it. Gerald Hoffman had other thoughts. The next morning, Sunday, he came over while I was watering my tomato plants. You met the new neighbor? Gerald asked. Kevin Marsh. Seems like a confident guy, I said carefully. Gerald lowered his voice. I looked them up last night. Patricia knows Tammy's sister from church. Kevin's had some issues. Got kicked out of their last neighborhood in Round Rock. Something about a dispute with the HOA there. Loud parties, construction without permits, the usual. What kind of usual? I asked. The kind that makes you wish you'd done more research before buying the house next to them, Gerald said with a thin smile. But hey, maybe they've turned over a new leaf. They had not turned over a new leaf. Phase 1 began 2 weeks after Kevin moved in. I call it Phase 1 in retrospect, because at the time, I didn't have a framework for what was happening. It was just annoying, inconvenient, the kind of thing that grates on you but doesn't quite rise to the level of a problem. The first incident was the music. It was a Friday night, April 26th, I remember, because it was the night before my niece's birthday, and I'd been on the phone with my sister making plans. Around 11 p.m., bass started thumping through the wall from Kevin's house. Not quiet bass. Not the ambient kind that you can almost ignore. This was the kind of bass that vibrates the pictures on my wall. I gave it 30 minutes. When it didn't stop, I walked over and knocked on Kevin's door. Kevin answered wearing a tank top and holding a bottle of Corona. Behind him, I could see maybe a dozen people in the living room. The music was loud enough that I had to raise my voice. Hey Kevin, it's John, from next door. The bass is pretty intense. It's shaking my walls. Mind turning it down? Kevin looked at me like I'd asked him to sacrifice his firstborn. It's a Friday night, brother. People are just having fun. I get that, but it's almost midnight, and some of us have to sleep. Relax, John. We'll wrap it up in a bit. He said it with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and he closed the door. The music didn't stop until 2 in the morning. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I was still operating under the assumption that this was a one-time thing, a housewarming party that got out of hand. I'd spent my career gathering information before acting, and that habit doesn't disappear just because you retire. The second incident happened the following weekend, Saturday night again. More bass, more people, this time spilling into the backyard. Around midnight, I heard glass break, the sound of a bottle shattering on concrete, then laughter, then more music. I didn't go over this time. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about all the ways I'd dealt with far more dangerous people in far more dangerous places. A loud neighbor in the suburbs was not a threat. It was an annoyance. I could handle an annoyance. The third incident was different. It was a Tuesday night, a school night, and it started at 3 in the morning. I woke to the sound of a diesel engine idling in the street. I looked out my bedroom window and saw a U-Haul truck parked in front of Kevin's house. Kevin and another man were unloading what appeared to be commercial-grade audio equipment, speakers the size of refrigerators, amplifiers, mixing boards. They carried it all through the front door. The whole operation took about 45 minutes. Then the U-Haul drove away, and for a moment, there was silence. Then the bass started again. 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, in a residential neighborhood, with children, his own children, presumably sleeping inside. That's when I started taking it seriously. The fourth incident was the yard waste. I woke on a Saturday morning in mid-May to find a pile of tree branches, grass clippings, and what appeared to be construction debris, drywall pieces, nails, and paint cans, dumped on the strip of grass between our properties. It wasn't on Kevin's lawn. It wasn't on my lawn exactly. It was on that ambiguous border area, the no man's land between two properties. I took photographs. Date-stamped, geotagged photographs. I'd learned long ago that documentation is the foundation of any operation, and the sooner you start building your file, the stronger your case will be when you need it. I knocked on Kevin's door. Tammy answered this time. "Hi, Tammy. There's a pile of debris on the property line between our houses. Branches, construction waste. Looks like it came from your yard work." Tammy looked over my shoulder toward the pile, then back at me with an expression of total disinterest. "That's not our stuff. We didn't put anything there." I could see a fresh pile of identical debris in Kevin's backyard, visible over the fence. The tree branches were from the live oak Kevin had trimmed the previous weekend. The drywall matched the renovation work I'd heard him doing inside his house. "Someone must have put it there during the night," I said evenly. "In any case, it's on the property line and needs to be cleaned up. Would you like me to contact the HOA about it, or would you prefer to handle it?" Tammy's eyes narrowed. "You do what you need to do, John. I handled it myself. I spent 2 hours in the Texas heat clearing the debris, separating the organic waste from the construction materials, and disposing of everything properly at the county facility on FM 812. I kept the receipts and the photographs. The fifth incident was the parking. Kevin's business vehicles, a fleet of white vans with KMW security logos on the sides, began appearing on the street. Not just one van, 5 of them. Every evening, his employees would park their work vans on Willow Creek Lane, taking up spaces that should have been available to residents and their guests. The HOA covenants, which I had read cover to cover within my first week of moving in, were clear on this point. Section 4.7, Commercial Vehicles. No commercial vehicles exceeding a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,500 pounds shall be parked on any street, driveway, or common area within Willowbrook Estates for a period exceeding 72 consecutive hours. The vans were Ford Transits, each weighing in at roughly 8,600 pounds GVWR. I documented the vans, license plates, timestamps, locations. I built a spreadsheet. Phase 2 began in earnest in June. By this point, I'd had enough casual interaction with Kevin to understand his personality profile. He was a man who operated on intimidation and escalation. Every boundary I set, he pushed past. Every reasonable request I made, he ignored or dismissed. He was, in the language of my former profession, a provocateur, someone who tests defenses to find the limits of his opposition. I decided it was time to find his. My surveillance setup was modest by military standards but comprehensive for a suburban environment. I installed a Ring doorbell camera on my front porch, which was visible and served as a deterrent. More importantly, I installed 2 Reolink RLC 810A bullet cameras on the corners of my garage, angled to cover the full width of my property, front yard, side yard, and the property line between my house and Kevin's. These were 4K cameras with night vision capability and 70-foot detection range. I also installed a parabolic microphone, a Symphonics Pro 40, which I'd purchased online for about $200, mounted inside my attic, aimed at Kevin's backyard. The microphone could capture clear conversation from up to 300 feet away in optimal conditions. From my attic vent, across a distance of approximately 60 feet, the audio quality was excellent. I set up a dedicated network-attached storage device, a Synology DS220J, in my home office. All camera footage and audio recordings fed directly to this device, encrypted and backed up to a cloud storage account I maintained through AWS. I established a rolling 30-day retention policy, which was sufficient for my purposes. I also began a systematic records search. In my career, I'd become proficient at open-source intelligence, OSINT, the practice of gathering information from publicly available sources. The techniques translate remarkably well to civilian life. Kevin Marsh was not a difficult target. Travis County property records showed that he'd purchased the house at 742 Willow Creek Lane on March 15th of this year for $395,000. The deed was held jointly with Tammy Marsh, née Tammy Lynn Barker. The mortgage was through First Republic Bank, a 30-year fixed at 6.75%. The Travis County Appraisal District listed the property's assessed value at $372,000, with an annual property tax bill of approximately $9,800. Not unusual for the area. A search of the Texas Secretary of State's business registry showed that KMW Security LLC was registered in February of 2020. Kevin Marsh was the registered agent. The principal office was listed as 742 Willow Creek Lane, my neighbor's address. This was relevant because Willowbrook Estates was zoned exclusively as R1 single-family residential by the City of Austin. Operating a commercial business from a residential property in an R1 zone required a conditional use permit, and a quick search of the City of Austin's Development Services database showed no such permit on file for 742 Willow Creek Lane. A search of City of Austin permit records revealed something even more interesting. Kevin had filed no permits for any of the renovation work he'd been doing. None. According to the city's database, the only permits on record for his property were the original construction permits from 2009. Yet since moving in, Kevin had been doing significant interior renovation. I could hear the work through the walls, and I'd seen the drywall debris. I'd also noticed, during a walk around the block, that his backyard now featured a large above-ground pool with a newly constructed wooden deck surrounding it. No permit for the deck, no permit for the electrical work required to run the pool's pump and filtration system. A deeper dive into Kevin's background through public court records revealed a pattern. In 2019, he'd been sued by his previous HOA in Round Rock for repeated covenant violations. The case had been settled out of court, with Kevin agreeing to pay $4,000 in fines and legal fees. In 2021, there was a small claims case filed by a former business partner, alleging that Kevin had failed to pay for equipment. That case was also settled, with Kevin paying $3,200. None of this was illegal to find. None of it required hacking or deception. It was all public record, available to anyone with an internet connection and the patience to look. I compiled everything into a single document. I called it the Marsh File. It was 53 pages long and included photographs, audio transcripts, property records, business filings, court documents, HOA covenants with highlighted relevant sections, and a timeline of every incident since Kevin had moved in. Each entry was date-stamped, sourced, and cross-referenced. In the intelligence community, we called this an intelligence dossier. In the suburbs, you could call it being a thorough neighbor. Phase 3 was the most satisfying part of the operation, not because anything happened, but because of the sheer number of vulnerabilities I identified. Kevin Marsh had been operating as if the rules didn't apply to him, and in doing so, he'd left himself exposed on virtually every front. Let me walk you through the vulnerabilities, because understanding them is key to understanding what came next. Vulnerability 1. Unpermitted construction. Under the City of Austin's Development Code, Section 25(2), any construction project exceeding a total cost of $500 requires a building permit. This includes decks, electrical work, plumbing modifications, and structural changes. Kevin's pool deck was clearly a major construction project. I estimated it at roughly 600 square feet of treated lumber with integrated seating, stairs, and a privacy screen. The electrical work for the pool alone required both a building permit and an electrical permit, as well as inspection by a licensed electrician. No permits had been filed. The penalty for unpermitted construction in Austin ranges from a written warning, first offense, to fines of up to $2,000 per day per violation. Given the scope of Kevin's work, the cumulative fines could be staggering. Vulnerability 2. Illegal home business. As I've noted, Willowbrook Estates was zoned R1 single-family residential. Under Austin City Code, Title 25, Chapter 25(2), operating a business from a residential property requires either that the business meet the criteria for a home occupation, which is limited to an activity that is clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling unit for residential purposes, and which does not change the character thereof, or that the property owner obtain a conditional use permit. Kevin's business, KMW Security, clearly did not meet the home occupation criteria. He had 6 employees. He stored commercial inventory, security cameras, cables, tools, equipment, in his garage and, based on what I could see, in a storage shed he'd built in his backyard, also unpermitted. He had 5 commercial vehicles parked on the street nightly. He conducted business meetings at his home. I'd seen clients arriving in the evenings. This was not a home occupation. This was a commercial enterprise operating in a residential zone, and the City of Austin's Code Compliance Department took such violations seriously, particularly when they generated complaints from neighbors. Vulnerability 3. HOA Covenant Violations. The Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association had a comprehensive set of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC&Rs, that ran with the land. I'd obtained a copy from the HOA Management Company, Association Management Group of Texas, within my first week. Kevin was in violation of at least 7 specific provisions. Section 4.3. Nuisance. No owner shall permit anything to be done on his lot which will interfere with the rights, comfort, or convenience of other owners. The repeated late-night parties, the noise, the bass vibration, all of this constituted a nuisance under the plain language of the covenant. Section 4.7. Commercial Vehicles. As I mentioned, the KMW security vans exceeded the give-you-are limit and were parked on the street continuously. Section 5.2. Exterior Appearance. No structural modification, addition, or alteration shall be commenced without prior written approval of the Architectural Review Committee. Kevin had not submitted any plans to the ARC for his pool deck, storage shed, or backyard modifications. Section 5.5. Storage. No lot shall be used for the storage of materials, equipment, or commercial supplies unless such storage is within a fully enclosed structure. Kevin's backyard was regularly cluttered with construction materials, security equipment, and commercial supplies that were visible from the street and neighboring properties. Section 6.1. Trash and Debris. All refuse, garbage, and trash shall be kept in sanitary containers and shall not be allowed to accumulate. Kevin had a recurring habit of leaving construction debris and yard waste in piles for days, sometimes weeks, before disposing of it. Section 7.2. Noise. No owner shall create or permit any noise that unreasonably interferes with the peaceful enjoyment of other lots. This was self-explanatory. Section 8.1. Rental Restrictions. This one was the most interesting, and it leads to Vulnerability 4. Vulnerability 4. Undocumented rental unit. During my surveillance, specifically during a late-night audio capture session in early July, I heard a conversation between Kevin and Tammy that confirmed my suspicion. Kevin had converted the home's 3-car garage into a separate living space and was renting it out. The conversation was clear enough. Kevin was complaining that the tenant, a man named Dale, was late with his rent again, and Tammy was suggesting they just kick him out and find someone who actually pays. A converted garage rental unit, no permit, no certificate of occupancy, no fire egress. And critically, under the Willowbrook Estates CC&Rs, Section 8.1, no portion of any dwelling unit shall be rented, leased, or sublet to any person not a member of the owner's family without the prior written consent of the association. There was no record of any such consent. Under Austin City Code, an unpermitted accessory dwelling unit, which is what a converted garage effectively is subject to stop work orders, fines, and a requirement to either bring the unit up to code or revert the structure to its original use. The fines for operating an unpermitted rental unit can reach $500 per day. Additionally, the City of Austin's Code Compliance Department could require Kevin to vacate the tenant and restore the garage to its original configuration at his own expense. Vulnerability 5. Tax Implications. If Kevin was collecting rent on an unpermitted, undisclosed rental unit, there was a reasonable question about whether he was reporting that rental income on his tax returns. I had no way to know for certain. I wasn't going to access his tax records, which would be illegal, but I could file a report with the IRS's tip line, providing the details of the undocumented rental unit and letting them investigate. The IRS takes unreported income very seriously, and the penalties for failing to report rental income can include back taxes, interest, and civil penalties of up to 75% of the underpaid tax. Vulnerability 6. Business licensing. A search of the City of Austin's business license database showed that KMW Security LLC did not have a current city business license. Under Austin City Code, Title 6, Chapter 6-3, any person conducting business within the city limits must obtain a business tax receipt. The absence of a license was a separate violation from the zoning issue and carried its own set of fines. 6 vulnerabilities, each one independently actionable. Together, they represented a comprehensive case for regulatory action that could cost Kevin tens of thousands of dollars in fines, force him to dismantle significant portions of his property improvements, shut down or relocate his business, and potentially trigger an IRS investigation. I wasn't going to do all of it at once. That would be sloppy. In intelligence work, you don't expend all your assets on a single strike. You sequence your operations for maximum effect. You let each action compound the pressure, creating a cascading failure that the target can't arrest or recover from. I spent 3 weeks planning. I called it Phase 4. Phase 4 began on July 15th. I chose that date deliberately. It was a Monday, which meant city offices would be open and fully staffed after the weekend. It was also 2 days after Kevin's most recent party, a Sunday night blow-up that had lasted until 4 in the morning and featured not just music but what sounded like a karaoke machine. 3 other neighbors had texted the HOA's emergency line to complain. I knew this because I'd become friendly with Donna Briggs, who lived across the street and 4 houses down, and who served on the HOA board. My first action was an anonymous complaint to the City of Austin's Code Compliance Department. I filed it online through the city's 311 portal, using a pseudonymous email account. The complaint was detailed, specific, and referenced exact code sections. I reported unpermitted construction, the pool deck and electrical work, potential unpermitted conversion of a garage to a habitable dwelling unit, and the operation of a commercial business in an R1 zone without a conditional use permit. I did not mention Kevin Marsh by name in the initial complaint. I provided the address only, 742 Willow Creek Lane, Austin, Texas, 78745. This was deliberate. An anonymous address-based complaint looks like a routine code enforcement inquiry. It doesn't trigger defensive behavior. Kevin would have no idea who reported him, or even that he'd been reported at all, not until a city inspector showed up at his door. My second action was a written complaint to the Willowbrook Estates HOA. This one was not anonymous. I was a homeowner in good standing, and I had every right to file a formal complaint. I typed it on my personal letterhead and mailed it via certified mail to the HOA management company. The complaint cited 6 specific covenant violations, each with the relevant section number and a description of the offending condition. I attached photographs, 23 of them, showing the commercial vehicles, the construction debris, the pool deck, the storage shed, and the general disarray of Kevin's property. I also included a USB drive containing video clips and audio recordings that documented the noise violations, including timestamps corresponding to the dates and times of the worst offenses. I sent a copy to each member of the HOA board individually, also via certified mail. My third action was a complaint to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, the TDLR. Kevin's business, KMW Security, installed home security systems, which in Texas requires an alarm systems company license issued by the TDLR under the Texas Occupations Code, Chapter 1702. A search of the TDLR's online license verification system showed that KMW Security LLC did not hold an alarm company license. Kevin Marsh did not hold an individual alarm installer license. Operating without the required license is a Class A misdemeanor in Texas, punishable by up to a year in jail and a $4,000 fine. More practically, a TDLR investigation could result in a cease and desist order that would shut Kevin's business down until he obtained the proper licensing, a process that takes months and requires passing examinations and meeting insurance requirements. I filed this complaint online through the TDLR's complaint portal, again using the pseudonymous email account, and again providing only the business name and address. Phase 4 was designed to be the opening salvo, not devastating on its own, but enough to begin drawing Kevin's attention and resources in multiple directions simultaneously. I expected the code compliance investigation to take 2 to 3 weeks. The HOA complaint would trigger a formal notice of violation within 10 days. The TDLR complaint would take longer, perhaps 4 to 6 weeks for an initial investigation. I was right on all 3 counts. The HOA responded first. On July 20th, 5 days after I mailed my complaint, I received a certified letter from Association Management Group acknowledging receipt and informing me that the board would review the matter at its regularly scheduled meeting on July 25th. On July 22nd, Donna Briggs called me. "John, I need to tell you something," she said. "The board received your complaint, and we're taking it seriously. But I want you to know, Kevin Marsh called me personally yesterday. He's furious. He thinks someone on the board is targeting him." "Did he say who he thinks is targeting him?" I asked. "He said, and I quote, 'Whoever's filing these complaints, better watch their back.' He didn't specify anyone, but the tone was not friendly." "I appreciate the heads up, Donna. I trust the board will handle it appropriately." "We will. We have to. You documented everything so thoroughly that we'd be derelict if we didn't act. But I wanted you to be aware that Kevin's the type to escalate." "I understand," I said. "Thank you." I hung up and made a note in the Marsh file. Subject has made implied threat against unknown complainant. Escalation likely. On July 25th, the HOA board met and voted unanimously to issue a formal notice of covenant violation to Kevin Marsh at 742 Willow Creek Lane. The notice cited 6 violations and gave Kevin 30 days to cure each one. Failure to cure would result in fines of $100 per day per violation, payable to the HOA, plus the HOA's legal fees if enforcement action became necessary. Kevin received the notice on July 27th. I know this because I watched the HOA's process server deliver it at approximately 2:15 in the afternoon. Kevin's reaction was visible from my living room window. He stood on his front porch reading the document, then crumpled it in his hand and threw it on the ground. He then kicked his front door shut hard enough that I heard it through the wall. I was sitting in my recliner, drinking iced tea, and I simply made another note in the file. The City of Austin Code Compliance Inspector arrived on August 1st. I'd been tracking the progress of the complaint through the city's online portal. The case number was 2024-COMP 448772. And I knew an inspection had been scheduled. I made sure to be working in my front yard that morning, watering my flower beds so I could observe without appearing to observe. The inspector's name was Rita Salcedo, according to her city badge. She spent approximately 45 minutes at Kevin's property. She measured the pool deck with a tape measure. She photographed the storage shed. She examined the exterior of the garage closely, including the window unit air conditioner that had been installed in what was clearly a converted living space. She took notes on a clipboard. Kevin followed her around his property the entire time, gesturing animatedly. I couldn't hear the conversation, but Kevin's body language was aggressive, arms waving, finger pointing, stepping into the inspector's personal space. Rita Salcedo was a professional. She didn't react. She finished her inspection, got in her city vehicle, and drove away. Kevin stood in his driveway for a long time after she left, staring at my house. I waved. He didn't wave back. The code compliance notice was issued on August 8th. I obtained a copy through a public information request, which I filed on August 9th, using my real name, because public information requests are a matter of public record, and there's nothing suspicious about a homeowner requesting code enforcement records for their own neighborhood. The notice cited Kevin for 3 violations: unpermitted construction, the pool deck, unpermitted electrical work, the pool system, and potential unpermitted conversion of a structure to a habitable dwelling. He was given 30 days to either obtain the required permits and pass inspections, or to remove the unpermitted improvements and restore the property to its prior condition. The fines, if he failed to comply, would be $200 per day per violation, $600 per day total. Kevin's response to the HOA notice and the code enforcement notice was not to comply. His response was to escalate. The keying incident happened on August 12th. It was a Sunday. I'd driven to the H-E-B on Slaughter Lane to pick up groceries, a routine trip, about 12 minutes each way. I was gone for approximately 90 minutes. When I returned and parked in my driveway, I didn't notice anything wrong. It wasn't until the following morning, when I walked past my car to get the mail, that I saw it. A deep, deliberate scratch ran along the entire length of the driver's side of my 2022 Toyota Tundra, from the front fender, across both doors, to the tailgate. The scratch was too straight, too even to be accidental. It had been made with a key, or a similar tool, applied with firm, controlled pressure. I didn't react, not outwardly. I stood next to my truck, looked at the scratch for about 10 seconds, and then went inside to get my camera. I photographed the scratch from multiple angles, with and without a tape measure for scale reference. I noted that the scratch was approximately 7 feet long and had penetrated the clear coat and base coat, exposing the primer beneath. I estimated the repair cost at approximately $2,000, based on my knowledge of automotive paintwork. Then I reviewed my camera footage. The Reolink camera covering my driveway captured everything. At 10:47 a.m. on August 12th, approximately 23 minutes after I'd left for the grocery store, Kevin Marsh walked up my driveway, looked directly at my truck, looked around to confirm no one was watching, and then drew a key from his pocket. He ran it along the driver's side in one smooth, practiced motion. The entire act took less than 5 seconds. He then walked back to his house, got in his Dodge Ram, and drove away. The footage was crystal clear. 4K resolution. His face was visible, the key was visible, the act was visible. It was, legally speaking, an open and shut case of criminal mischief under Texas Penal Code Section 28.03, which prohibits intentionally or knowingly damaging another person's property. Since the damage exceeded $200, it was a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail and a $4,000 fine. I downloaded the footage to 3 separate storage devices: the Synology NAS, a USB drive that I placed in my safe deposit box at the Wells Fargo on Brody Lane, and a second USB drive that I mailed to my attorney, a man named Thomas Vreeland, who I'd retained on a consultation basis the previous month. I did not confront Kevin. I did not call the police. Not yet. The false police report came 3 days later, on August 15th. I was at home on a Wednesday evening, reading a book in my living room, when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it to find 2 Austin Police Department officers, a man and a woman, both in standard uniform. The male officer was older, perhaps 50, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd been doing this for a long time. The female officer was younger, maybe 28, and was taking notes on a small pad. "Good evening, sir. Are you John Reeves?" the older officer asked. "That's me," I said. "What can I do for you?" "We received a call from a neighbor reporting that you've been engaging in threatening behavior toward them. Specifically, the caller alleges that you approached them in their driveway on August 12th and made verbal threats." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "Officer, I have not approached anyone in any driveway on any date. I have not made any threats toward any person, and I believe I know who made this report and why." "Can you tell us about that?" the older officer asked. I invited them inside. I offered water, which they declined. I sat at my kitchen table and walked them through the entire history: the noise complaints, the debris dumping, the HOA violations, the code enforcement issues. I showed them the Marsh file. I showed them the footage of Kevin keying my truck on August 12th. The female officer watched the video twice. She looked at the older officer. He nodded slowly. "So it appears that the person who filed the complaint against you is the same person who vandalized your vehicle 3 days earlier," the older officer said. "That's my understanding. Yes," I said. "I believe this false report is retaliatory. I filed legitimate complaints about his property through proper legal channels, the HOA and the city, and he responded by vandalizing my truck and then filing a false police report to intimidate me. We're going to need copies of this footage," the female officer said. "I have copies ready," I said, handing her a USB drive. "I also have copies stored off-site with my attorney, Thomas Vreeland. You're welcome to verify their authenticity with him." The officers took the USB drive and left. Before they did, the older officer pulled me aside. Sir, I've been doing this for 26 years. I've seen neighbor disputes turn into some ugly situations. My advice to you is to continue doing exactly what you're doing, documenting everything, going through proper channels. Don't engage with this man directly. Let the system work. I appreciate that advice, officer. I intend to follow it. They drove to Kevin's house. I watched from my window. Kevin came to the door, and I could see his posture change as the officers spoke to him. His shoulders dropped. His hands went to his hips. He shook his head several times. The conversation lasted about 15 minutes. The officers left without arresting anyone. The next day, I called Officer Salcedo's supervisor at APD and inquired about the status of the criminal mischief report. I was told that the case had been referred to the Travis County District Attorney's Office for review. I was also told that Kevin had denied keying my truck and claimed that the footage had been altered or staged. I expected that. Denial is the default response of someone with no better options. Phase 5 was the legal offensive. If Phase 4 was the opening salvo, Phase 5 was the coordinated barrage. The objective was to apply pressure from multiple independent vectors simultaneously, creating a situation where Kevin would have to allocate his time, money, and attention across half a dozen different problems, none of which had anything to do with me, and all of which were the direct result of his own decisions. I launched Phase 5 on September 1st. Action 1. I contacted the Travis County Appraisal District and filed a formal challenge to Kevin's property tax assessment. My argument was straightforward. The property at 742 Willow Creek Lane now contained unpermitted improvements, specifically the pool deck and the converted garage, that increased its market value. If the property was worth more because of these improvements, Kevin should be paying higher property taxes. If the improvements were not permitted and therefore not legal, the appraisal district needed to know about that too. This was a clever move because it put Kevin in a bind. Either he admitted the improvements existed, which validated the code enforcement complaint, or he denied them, which was contradicted by visual evidence from the street. Action 2. I filed a complaint with the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts regarding Kevin's potential failure to collect and remit sales tax on his security system installations. Under Texas law, security system installation is a taxable service, and the installer is required to collect state sales tax, currently 6.25% in Austin, plus the city's 2% local sales tax, for a total of 8.25%. If Kevin was collecting cash payments and not remitting sales tax, he was committing tax fraud. I didn't know whether he was, but the comptroller's office had the authority to audit his business records and find out. The complaint included the business name, address, and a description of the services Kevin provided. Action 3. I filed a complaint with the Texas Attorney General's office under the Deceptive Trade Practices Act. My complaint alleged that KMW Security was advertising and performing licensed services, alarm system installation, without the required state license, which constituted a deceptive trade practice under Texas Business and Commerce Code Section 17.46. The Attorney General's office took unlicensed contractor complaints seriously because they posed a direct risk to consumer safety. An unlicensed alarm installer could make errors that compromised a home's security system, leaving the homeowner vulnerable. Action 4. I filed a formal complaint with the IRS regarding the suspected unreported rental income from the converted garage unit. I used IRS Form 3949A, which is the official form for reporting suspected tax fraud. I included all the details I'd gathered: the address, the presence of a tenant, whom I'd identified through a combination of surveillance and public records as Dale Whitfield, age 52, of Austin, Texas, the estimated monthly rent based on comparable units in the area, approximately $1,200 per month, and the duration of the tenancy, since approximately May of this year, based on when I'd first observed the tenant entering and exiting the converted garage. I estimated the unreported income at roughly $8,400 for the period I'd observed, and I noted that the rental unit was unpermitted, which raised additional questions about whether Kevin was deducting associated expenses on his tax returns. Action 5. I sent a formal demand letter to Kevin Marsh, care of KMW Security LLC, through my attorney Thomas Vreeland. The letter detailed the keying incident, cited the video evidence, and demanded payment of $2,400 to cover the cost of repairing my truck. The letter gave Kevin 15 days to pay. If he failed to pay, the letter stated, we would file a civil lawsuit for criminal mischief and seek damages, attorney's fees, and court costs. This was not an anonymous action. Kevin would know exactly who was behind it. But that was intentional. By this point, I wanted Kevin to know that I was not afraid of him, that I had evidence, and that I had legal representation. Action 6. I filed a complaint with the City of Austin's Development Services Department specifically regarding the lack of a certificate of occupancy for the converted garage. This was a separate action from the code compliance complaint and was directed at a different department within the city. It triggered a separate investigation and a separate set of potential penalties. Bureaucracy is slow, but it's also relentless, and every additional complaint added another layer of scrutiny to Kevin's situation. All 6 actions were launched within a single week. Kevin was now facing an IRS investigation, a state tax audit, a Texas Attorney General inquiry, a TDLR licensing investigation, a city code enforcement action, an HOA enforcement action, a civil lawsuit for property damage, and a criminal mischief case in the Travis County DA's office. 8 separate fronts, all legal, all legitimate, all the direct consequence of his own choices. Phase 6 was the unraveling. I didn't have to do much during this phase. The bureaucratic machinery I'd set in motion was largely self-sustaining. My role was to monitor, document, and occasionally provide additional information when requested by the various agencies involved. The first visible crack appeared in mid-September. The TDLR investigation concluded, and KMW Security received a formal cease and desist order, requiring the company to stop performing alarm system installations immediately until proper licensing was obtained. Kevin had 30 days to comply. Since the licensing process required passing an examination and obtaining a surety bond, neither of which could be accomplished in 30 days, the practical effect was an immediate shutdown of Kevin's primary source of income. I learned about the cease and desist from Donna Briggs, who'd heard it from Kevin's wife Tammy. According to Donna, Tammy had confided in another neighbor, Diane Kutcher, who lived 2 doors down on the other side of Kevin's house, that the business was in trouble and that Kevin was freaking out. The second crack appeared in late September. The City of Austin's Code Compliance Department issued a second, more severe notice to Kevin. The first notice had given him 30 days to cure the violations. He had not obtained the required permits, had not removed the unpermitted improvements, and had not responded to the city's notices in any meaningful way. The second notice imposed the daily fines, $600 per day, retroactive to the original notice date of August 8th. By my calculation, Kevin now owed the City of Austin approximately $19,800 in code compliance fines, and the amount was growing by $600 every single day. The third crack was the HOA fines. Kevin had not cured any of the 6 covenant violations cited in the HOA's Notice of Covenant Violation. The 30-day cure period had expired on August 27th, and the HOA had begun assessing daily fines of $100 per violation, $600 per day total, running concurrently with the city fines. That was another $18,000 or so, and counting. Kevin was now hemorrhaging approximately $1,200 per day in fines. His business had been shut down, and he had a civil lawsuit pending. The financial pressure must have been enormous. I observed the effects from a distance, the way a field commander observes the impact of an artillery bombardment through binoculars. In early October, the commercial vans stopped appearing on the street. Kevin had apparently told his employees to park elsewhere, which addressed one HOA violation but didn't help his business, which was already shut down. In mid-October, the pool deck came down. I watched from my kitchen window as Kevin and his son, the 16-year-old, spent an entire Saturday tearing apart the deck they'd built just a few months earlier. The pile of lumber in Kevin's backyard grew and grew. Kevin was not gentle about it. He was ripping boards off with a crowbar, throwing them into a pile, cursing loudly enough that I could hear him through my closed windows. The deck had probably cost him $8,000 to $10,000 to build. Now it was rubble. In late October, the tenant, Dale Whitfield, moved out. I saw him loading his belongings into a pickup truck one afternoon. Kevin stood in the driveway watching, arms crossed, saying nothing. Dale got in his truck and drove away. Kevin went back inside. The garage conversion was dead. With no tenant and a city order to restore the structure, Kevin had lost the rental income and would now have to pay to undo the renovation. By November, the social isolation was becoming apparent. Kevin had alienated virtually every neighbor on the street. The loud parties had stopped. There was no money for them, but the damage to his reputation was done. People who had once been willing to give him the benefit of the doubt now avoided him. When Kevin walked his dog in the mornings, neighbors who were outside would politely excuse themselves and go inside. Donna Briggs told me that Kevin had been blackballed from the neighborhood's group chat, a WhatsApp group called Willow Creek Neighbors that included most of the residents. Even Gerald and Patricia Hoffman, the kindest people on the street, had given up on Kevin. Gerald told me over the fence one afternoon, "I tried. I really tried. Patricia baked him a pie when they first moved in. He didn't even say thank you. And then the parties, the noise, the garbage everywhere. Life's too short, John." I agreed. Life was too short. The confrontation happened on November 14th, a Thursday. I was in my front yard, raking leaves, when Kevin walked across the property line and stood in my yard, about 10 feet from me. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, maybe 20 pounds, and the weight loss made his face look gaunt and older. His eyes were red. He hadn't shaved in several days. He was wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, and he looked like a man who hadn't slept well in weeks. "I know it was you," Kevin said. His voice was low and controlled, but there was a tremor underneath it. The complaints, the HOA, the city, the TDLR, the IRS, all of it. "I know it was you." I leaned on my rake and looked at him. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just looked at him with the same flat, patient expression I'd used 1,000 times in interrogation rooms and debriefings. "Kevin, I filed legitimate complaints through legal channels," I said. "You were operating an unlicensed business from a residential property. You built structures without permits. You converted your garage into an illegal rental unit. You violated the HOA covenants repeatedly and flagrantly. You held parties that kept the entire street awake. You dumped debris on the property line. You keyed my truck. You filed a false police report against me." Kevin's jaw tightened. "You had no right." "I had every right," I said, cutting him off with a calm that I think disturbed him more than anger would have. "Every single thing I did was legal. Every complaint was documented. Every action went through the proper channels. You did this to yourself, Kevin. You moved into a neighborhood with rules, and you decided the rules didn't apply to you. You treated your neighbors with contempt. You broke the law, repeatedly and openly. And when someone called you on it, your response was to vandalize their property and lie to the police." Kevin was silent for a long moment. His hands were clenched at his sides. "I spent 22 years in military intelligence," I continued. "I know how to gather information. I know how to build a case. I know how to be patient. You picked the wrong neighbor, Kevin. Not because I'm cruel or vengeful. I'm not. But because I don't make mistakes. Everything I documented, everything I filed, everything I reported, it was all accurate. It was all verifiable. And it was all the direct result of things you chose to do." "Are you proud of yourself?" Kevin asked. His voice cracked slightly. "I'm not proud," I said honestly. "I didn't enjoy any of this. I wanted a quiet retirement. I wanted peace. You took that from me, and I took it back. That's not pride. That's just consequence." Kevin stared at me for maybe 10 seconds. Then he turned and walked back to his house. He didn't say another word. I went back to raking my leaves. The departure happened in early December. A for sale sign appeared in Kevin's front yard on December 3rd. The listing price was $379,000, $16,000 less than what he'd paid 8 months earlier. The house sat on the market for 47 days. During that time, I noticed that Kevin had been ordered by the city to restore the garage to its original configuration, which meant hiring a contractor to remove the interior walls, the plumbing, and the window unit air conditioner, and reinstall the garage door that had been replaced with a residential entry door. Based on the contractor trucks I saw in the driveway over a 2-week period, I estimated this work cost Kevin between $8,000 and $12,000. The house finally sold on January 18th for $352,000, $43,000 less than Kevin had paid, and before accounting for the fines, legal fees, repair costs, and lost business income he'd incurred during his 8-month residency. By my estimate, Kevin Marsh lost between $120,000 and $150,000 in total. That included the loss on the house sale, the city fines, the HOA fines, the cost of removing the pool deck and restoring the garage, the legal fees for the criminal mischief case, the civil settlement for my truck, which he ultimately paid through his homeowner's insurance after his attorney advised him that the video evidence made a defense impossible, the cost of obtaining a business license and surety bond for KMW Security, and the lost income from the 8 months during which his business was either shut down or severely constrained. He left on a gray Saturday morning in late January. A moving truck came, and Kevin, Tammy, and the 2 kids loaded their belongings with none of the enthusiasm they'd arrived with. Tammy's sister, the one Patricia Hoffman knew from church, came to help, and I overheard her telling Tammy that this is for the best. Kevin did not come over to say goodbye. He did not look at my house. He got in his Dodge Ram, waited for Tammy and the kids to follow in her SUV, and drove away. I was sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee when they left. The street was quiet. The morning was cold and clear. A cardinal was singing in the oak tree in my front yard. I took a sip of coffee and listened to the silence. The new owners moved in during March. A young couple, both software engineers at Dell, with a golden retriever and a shared love of gardening. They introduced themselves on their first day, brought a plate of homemade cookies, and asked if I had any recommendations for local restaurants. I told them about the Thai place on Slaughter Lane and the barbecue joint on Manchaca. They kept their yard clean. They smiled when they saw me in the morning. One evening, about a month after they'd settled in, the husband, a tall, polite man named David, came over while I was grilling steaks. "John, I've got to ask," he said. "The HOA disclosure documents mentioned some issues with the previous owner. Code enforcement, covenant violations, that kind of thing. What was the story there?" I thought about it for a moment, then I said, "The previous owner had some trouble following the rules. It got complicated, but it's all resolved now." David nodded. "Good to know. We're just looking for a quiet place to live, you know?" "I know exactly what you mean," I said. "Welcome to the neighborhood, David." He smiled and went back to his house. I flipped my steaks and looked out at the street. The sun was setting over the rooftops. The streetlights were just beginning to flicker on. Somewhere down the block, a child was laughing. The air smelled like hickory smoke and fresh-cut grass. My tomato plants were coming in beautifully. My crepe myrtles were starting to bud. The cardinal was still singing. 22 years of intelligence work, 3 combat tours, a career built on patience, precision, and the disciplined application of pressure. And the most satisfying operation of my life was conducted entirely from a recliner in a suburban living room, armed with nothing more than a camera, a spreadsheet, and an intimate knowledge of municipal code. Kevin Marsh thought he was untouchable. He thought the rules were for other people. He thought that intimidation and aggression were effective strategies for getting what he wanted. He was wrong. I finished my steak, cleaned the grill, and sat on my porch until the stars came out. The neighborhood was quiet, the way it was supposed to be. That's all I ever wanted. Story 2. I trained my biggest fan into my worst enemy, and then destroyed him. My name doesn't matter. What matters is my brand. 5 years ago, I was nothing, a nobody with a cheap camera and a garage gym I built from Craigslist parts. I posted my first workout video on a Tuesday morning, 6 views, 3 of them were me, checking if it uploaded right. Today, 500,000 people follow everything I do, every rep, every meal, every thought I have about fitness that's worth sharing. I built that from the ground up. Sweat equity, blood equity, a marriage that almost didn't survive the grind, and a body that's been through 3 herniated discs to prove I earned every single follower. I'm not telling you this to flex. I'm telling you because you need to understand what was at stake. When someone steals 5 years of your life and calls it their own, you don't get mad, you get strategic. It started with a DM. July 14th, a Tuesday. I remember because I'd just finished filming a shoulder workout, the volcano protocol, I called it. 6 exercises, 4 sets each, timed rest periods. I'd spent 3 weeks designing the program, testing it on myself, tweaking the volume, getting the science right. I uploaded the video at 6 p.m. By 7, my phone buzzed. A message from a follower, username, @fitmarcus.jj. His real name was Marcus Webb. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was he'd been following me for about 8 months, commented on everything. Bro, this is fire. Killer workout. You're the GOAT. His message said, hey man, just wanted to say the volcano protocol is insane. Hit shoulders today and I'm destroyed in the best way. Quick question. Do you mind if I share my results doing your program on my page? I'll tag you and everything. I typed back, go for it, brother. Always appreciate the love. That was my first mistake. Not because I gave him permission, because I gave him access. Let me back up. I need to tell you how I built what I built. Because understanding the construction is the only way to understand the demolition. I started my page in 2019. Just me, an iPhone 8, and a ring light I bought at a garage sale for $7. My first content was rough, shaky camera, bad audio, me grunting through pull-ups in a garage that smelled like motor oil and old drywall. But I had something most fitness creators didn't, a system. I wasn't just showing workouts, I was building a methodology. I called it the Iron Architecture System. The idea was simple. Structure your training like you'd structure a building. Foundation first, compound movements, core stability. Then the framework, progressive overload, periodization. Then the finish work, accessories, isolation, peak contraction. I branded everything. Every workout had a name. Every phase had a color code on my calendar graphics. My meal plans weren't just chicken and rice. They were Blueprint A, hypertrophy, Blueprint B, recomp, Blueprint C, shred. I hired a designer on Fiverr, cost me $300 I couldn't afford, to create my logo. A geometric iron beam forming an A for architecture. Clean, minimal, professional. My color palette was specific. Deep navy blue, stark white, one accent color, a burnt orange that I chose because it looked like hot iron. Every thumbnail followed the same template. Me mid-rep, intensity on my face, with the workout name in that burnt orange font across the bottom. Consistent, recognizable. If you scrolled past one of my posts, you knew it was mine before you read a single word. That's what 5 years of work looks like. Not just the content, the entire ecosystem. I posted every day, sometimes twice. Mornings were workouts, evenings were meal prep or educational content. Form breakdowns, muscle anatomy deep dives, supplement reviews with actual citations. I did all the research myself, read textbooks, took an online nutrition certification, interviewed physical therapists on my podcast. I wasn't just a guy lifting weights in a garage anymore. I was an educator. My following grew slowly at first, 1,000 by the end of year 1, 10,000 by year 2. Then things accelerated. A video went viral. My death set chest workout got picked up by a fitness aggregator. 50,000 new followers in a week. By year 3, I was at 200K. Sponsors started reaching out. Supplement companies, apparel brands. I signed my first real deal, a $5,000 monthly contract with a protein company, on the same day my daughter was born. I was in the hospital holding this tiny, screaming human in one hand and signing a sponsorship contract on my phone with the other. My wife looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Year 4, 350K. I quit my day job, construction management. 14 years of climbing ladders and yelling at subcontractors, traded for a camera and a gym. Everyone thought I was crazy. My foreman told me I'd be back in 6 months. I told him I wouldn't, and I meant it. Construction taught me something that most creators never learn. How to build something that lasts. How to plan. How to execute. How to look at a blueprint and see the finished product before the first nail is hammered. I applied that thinking to content. Every video was a building. Foundation, framework, finish. Hook, value, call to action. It worked because it was systematic, because it was engineered, not improvised. Year 5, 500K, a six-figure business. My wife handled the business side, emails, contracts, the merchandise store. I handled the creative. We were a machine. Then Marcus Webb entered the picture. August 2019 was the first time I noticed Marcus's page. He'd been following me for a few weeks at that point. His profile picture was a gym selfie. Good build, not great, but good. The kind of physique you get from 2 years of consistent training and a decent diet. He had maybe 2,000 followers. His content was what you'd expect from a small fitness page. Mirror selfies, basic workouts, nothing special. But then he started tagging me. Every other post. Trying out Iron Architecture's Volcano Protocol today. Meal prep inspired by Iron Architecture Blueprint B. I didn't think anything of it. This happens all the time. People try your workouts, share their experience, tag you. It's free marketing. I liked his posts, left encouraging comments. Keep grinding, brother. Great work on those lateral raises. I was being a nice guy, a community builder, a leader. Meanwhile, Marcus was taking notes. September rolled around. I posted a new program, the Earthquake Leg Protocol. 5 exercises, high volume, the kind of leg day that makes you walk like a newborn deer for 3 days. The video went up on a Monday. By Wednesday, Marcus had posted his version. His video was similar, same exercises, same order, same set and rep scheme. But here's the thing, he'd changed the name, called it the Seismic Leg Destroyer, added his own intro, his own outro, his own burnt orange text on the thumbnail. Wait, burnt orange? I looked closer. His thumbnail had the same layout as mine. Him mid-rep, intensity on his face, workout name across the bottom in a font that was almost identical to mine. The color wasn't exact. His was a little more red than orange, but close enough that at a glance, you'd think it was my content. I brushed it off. Coincidence. There are only so many ways to design a fitness thumbnail. The color thing was weird, but whatever. Fitness Instagram is full of copycats. It's the nature of the game. I kept scrolling. October. I posted a deep dive video on shoulder anatomy. 15 minutes long. I'd spent a week researching medical journals, anatomy textbooks, a phone call with a sports medicine doctor I'd built a relationship with. The video covered the deltoid in 3 sections: anterior, lateral, posterior. Origin and insertion points, optimal fiber recruitment angles, common injuries and how to avoid them. It was the most educational content I'd ever produced. It took me 4 takes to get it right. My throat was raw by the end. 2 days later, Marcus posted a shoulder anatomy deep dive, 15 minutes. Same 3-section breakdown, same origin and insertion points, even the same diagram. I'd drawn mine on a whiteboard with a dry erase marker. He'd drawn his on a whiteboard with a dry erase marker. Same camera angle, same lighting, but the words were different. He'd rephrased everything. Paraphrased. If you didn't know better, you'd think he'd done his own research. I knew better. The structure was identical. The flow was identical. He even made the same joke I made. Your rear delts are like the appendix of the shoulder. Nobody thinks about them until something goes wrong. That was my joke. I wrote it. I was proud of it. And there it was, coming out of Marcus Webb's mouth like he'd thought of it in the shower. I screenshot everything, saved the links, wrote down the timestamps. Then I sat on it. Why? Because I'm not impulsive. Impulsive people make mistakes. They react emotionally and say things they can't take back. I've been in enough construction site arguments to know that the guy who yells first loses. I watched, I waited. I documented. November was quiet. Marcus seemed to pull back slightly. He posted his own content, standard fitness stuff, nothing that crossed the line. I almost relaxed. Then December hit. I launched my merchandise line. Iron Architecture branded hoodies, tank tops, and gym bags. Navy blue with the geometric A logo in white. Clean, minimal, expensive looking. My wife had spent 2 months working with a manufacturer to get the quality right. She'd ordered samples from 6 different factories before finding one that met her standards. The fabric weight, the stitching, the print quality, she was ruthless about it. If someone's going to wear our name, she told me, it better feel like it's worth wearing. We sold out the first run in 4 hours, 5,000 units. I couldn't believe it. 3 days later, Marcus posted his own merchandise announcement. Seismic Fit. That was his brand now. He'd rebranded his entire page. New logo, a geometric crack forming an S. Navy blue background. White logo, and the accent color on his website? You guessed it, a red-orange that was one shade different from my burnt orange. The hoodies were navy blue with the geometric S in white. I stared at my phone for a long time. My wife walked into my office. You okay? You look like someone died. Someone's identity did, I said. She looked at my phone, then she looked at me. That's basically your brand. Basically. What are you going to do? I closed my phone. I'm going to be patient. Here's the thing about Marcus Webb that I learned later. He wasn't just some random gym bro. He wasn't some clueless kid who didn't know better. He was smart, methodical, calculated. He had a degree in marketing from a mid-tier university. Graduated with a 3.7 GPA. He'd worked in digital advertising for 2 years before he found fitness, knew how to read analytics, knew how to identify trends, knew how to reverse engineer a content strategy by looking at the data. What he'd really found was a shortcut. Marcus had studied my page the way a criminal studies a bank. He knew my posting schedule. I posted at 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. every day without fail. He knew my content pillars: workouts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, education on Tuesdays and Thursdays, meal prep on Saturdays, rest day content on Sundays. He knew which of my videos performed best and why. He'd created a spreadsheet. I found it later during the discovery phase of all this, cataloging every piece of content I'd ever posted, categorized by type, performance metrics, and replication difficulty. He rated each piece of my content on how easy it would be to copy. Workout videos got a 2 out of 5. Educational content got a 3. Branding and merchandise got a 4. His strategy was surgical. He didn't copy everything at once. He'd take one piece, change it just enough to avoid obvious plagiarism, post it on his page, and see what happened. When it worked, he'd take another piece, like testing the alarm system before the real heist. By December, his following had grown from 2,000 to 15,000. Not from his own ideas, from mine. But I still waited. I need to tell you about the Fitness Expo, because that's where I first saw Marcus Webb in the flesh. It was March of the following year, the FitPro Summit in Las Vegas. I'd been invited as a featured creator, a booth, a panel discussion, a meet and greet session, my first real industry event. My wife and I flew out together, left the baby with her parents, felt guilty about it the entire flight. The expo hall was massive, hundreds of booths. Supplement companies, equipment manufacturers, apparel brands, every fitness creator you've ever heard of, plus 100 you haven't. I was walking the floor on the first day, shaking hands, shaking more hands, smiling until my face hurt. That's when I saw him. Marcus Webb. Standing at a supplement company's booth, wearing a navy blue hoodie with a geometric logo. Not my logo, his, Seismic Fit. But from 10 feet away, you couldn't tell the difference. He had a small crowd around him, maybe 15 people. He was talking about training methodology, his seismic system, he called it. Structure your training like a building. Foundation first, framework second, finish work last. My system, my words, my metaphor. I stood there for a full minute, just watching. He was good, I'll give him that. Confident, articulate. He had the energy of a real creator. The problem was that none of it was his. My wife grabbed my arm. That's him, isn't it? That's him. You want to go over there? No. 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 I want him to keep talking. Every word he says is another piece of evidence. She squeezed my arm. You're scary sometimes, you know that? Only when I need to be. We turned around and walked the other way, but I made a mental note of everything. The booth he was at, the supplement company, the people in his crowd. All of it went into the file. January was a turning point. Not for Marcus. For me. I posted a meal plan video, Blueprint C Shred. It was a detailed breakdown of my competition prep diet from the previous spring. 7 days of meals, macros broken down to the gram, grocery lists, meal prep instructions, 45 minutes of content. I'd charge $49 for this as a PDF on my website. The video was a teaser. Show enough to prove value, hold back enough to drive sales. It worked. The video got 2.3 million views. The PDF sold 4,000 copies in the first week. Nearly $200,000 in revenue from one piece of content. I couldn't believe the numbers. My wife had to triple-check the dashboard to make sure it wasn't a glitch. Marcus waited exactly 9 days. Then he posted his own meal plan video. Seismic Shred Protocol, he called it. 7 days of meals, same macros, same grocery lists, same meal prep instructions. He'd even used the same meal prep containers, the black and clear ones from Amazon that I'd recommended in my video. Same exact brand, same size, same compartment layout. But here's where he got clever. He didn't just copy the video. He copied the PDF too. He created his own version, the Seismic Shred Guide, and posted it for free on his page. Free. He gave away for free what I was selling for $49. His follower count jumped from 15,000 to 40,000 in 2 weeks. My sales dropped 30%. That's when it stopped being about pride and started being about money, real money, my family's money, the money that paid our mortgage and bought diapers and kept the lights on. A guy named Dan, ex-military, built like a fire hydrant and meaner than a junkyard dog when he needed to be. He'd handled my business formation and my first sponsorship contract. I trusted him the way you trust a guy who's been shot at and still shows up to work every morning. Dan, I need to talk to you about intellectual property. Shoot. I explained everything. The copying, the rebranding, the free PDF, the merchandise, the expo incident. I'd organized everything into a folder. Screenshots, timestamps, URLs, archived versions of his posts. 312 files, organized by date, cross-referenced with my original content. Dan was quiet for a long time after I finished. I could hear him flipping through documents on his end. Here's the problem, he said. Workout routines aren't copyrightable. You can't copyright a list of exercises. Meal plans, same deal. You can't copyright chicken, rice, and broccoli. The courts have been very clear on this. What about the presentation, the branding, the specific expression? That's where it gets interesting. Your videos are copyrighted, automatically, from the moment you create them. Your thumbnails are copyrighted. Your logo is trademarked. Your specific written content, the PDF, the educational videos, those are protected. But he's paraphrasing, changing names, tweaking colors. It's the grayest gray area I've ever seen. So I'm screwed? No, you're not screwed. But you're not going to win this with a single lawsuit. This is going to be a campaign, a sustained, multi-pronged campaign that attacks the problem from every angle simultaneously. He told me to keep documenting, keep archiving, and start building a case not just for copyright infringement, but for trademark dilution and unfair competition. What's unfair competition? When someone's actions are likely to confuse consumers about the source of goods or services. If his page looks so much like yours that people think it is yours, that's a problem. If they buy his merchandise thinking it's yours, that's a problem. If sponsors sign him thinking he's you or affiliated with you, that's a problem. People do think it's mine. I've gotten DMs from followers asking why I changed my name. Dan perked up. I could practically hear him lean forward in his chair. You have those in writing? I do now. Started saving them 3 months ago. Good. Keep them. This is how we build the case. Consumer confusion is the linchpin. Without it, this is just 2 fitness creators with similar content. With it, this is a guy who built his entire business by impersonating you. February through April was the documentation phase. I became a detective. Not the kind with a badge and a gun, the kind with a spreadsheet and a VPN. Every night, after my wife and daughter went to sleep, I'd sit in my office with the lights low and scroll through Marcus's page. I created a master document, a living, breathing dossier that grew thicker every week. Every post Marcus made, every similarity to my content, side-by-side comparisons with timestamps. I'd take a screenshot of my original post, note the date and time, then take a screenshot of his copy, note the date and time, and calculate the gap. The average gap was 11 days. He'd wait roughly a week and a half after I posted something before posting his version. Long enough to seem organic, short enough to ride the wave of whatever trend my content had created. The shortest gap was 7 days, a leg workout video. The longest was 23 days, a holiday-themed meal prep special. I found his old posts, the ones from before he started following me. They were completely different. Bright, colorful thumbnails, emoji-heavy captions, the generic fitness influencer aesthetic. His voice was different too. Upbeat, casual, full of lol and exclamation points and fire emojis. The kind of content that gets 50 likes from your high school friends and goes nowhere. After he started following me, his voice changed, became more serious, more educational, more like mine. Same sentence structure, same rhythm, same way of starting videos with a quiet, intense close-up. Same way of ending with a call to action followed by a single motivational line. I found a post from June, 2 months before his first DM to me, where he'd commented on another creator's page, "Love how you structure your content. Need to figure out my own brand identity." Then in August, right after he started following me, big things coming, rebranding soon, going all in on a new vision. His new vision was my vision, stolen, repackaged, and sold as his own. And then I found the spreadsheet. Marcus had made a critical error. He'd accidentally made one of his planning spreadsheets public on his Google Drive, a shared link that wasn't supposed to be shared. I found it through a mutual follower who'd stumbled on it and sent it to me. The spreadsheet was titled Content Strategy Q4 Optimization. It had tabs. Tabs for IA analysis, that's me, Iron Architecture. Tabs for replication calendar. Tabs for brand alignment tracking. The IA analysis tab listed every one of my posts from the past year. Columns for post date, content type, engagement rate, share rate, replication priority, notes. Under replication priority, he'd rated each post from 1 to 5. My meal plan video had a 5. My shoulder anatomy video had a 4. My merchandise launch had a 5. The notes column was the most damning. Next to my volcano protocol video, easy to replicate. Change exercise names, keep structure. High engagement equals high ROI on replication. Next to my brand colors, navy #1A1A2E, white #5th, orange #E67E22. Shift orange to #D3540100 for differentiation. Use similar but not identical palette. Next to my logo, geometric iron beam concept. Adapt to crack seismic theme, same minimal aesthetic, same clean lines. I printed the entire spreadsheet, 47 pages. I notarized it that afternoon. This wasn't inspiration anymore. This was industrial espionage on a micro scale. This was a marketing professional, systematically extracting the value from someone else's creative work and injecting it into his own brand. I sat at my kitchen table that night, looking at those printed pages. My daughter was asleep upstairs. My wife was reading next to me. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "Found something," I said. She looked up from her book. "Good something or bad something?" "Good for us, bad for him." She read the first page of the spreadsheet, then the second. Then she closed the folder and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, something colder. Something that looked like certainty. "He planned this," she said. "Every step." This wasn't some kid who got carried away. No, this was a grown man with a marketing degree who saw an opportunity and took it. "What are you going to do?" I flipped to the last page of the spreadsheet. The tab was called Growth Targets. It had a timeline, 50K by January, 100K by March, 200K by June. Sponsorship revenue, 10K month by Q2. He'd hit every target, almost on schedule. "I'm going to take it all away," I said. During this time, Marcus's following exploded. 40,000 became 80,000. Then 120,000. Then 160,000. He started getting sponsorships, supplement companies, apparel brands, the kind of mid-tier deals that pay $2,000, $5,000 a month and come with free product. He was building a business on my architecture. He started getting DMs from other creators, collab requests, podcast invitations. The fitness industry was absorbing him as if he'd created something original, as if he'd earned his place. I got a message from a creator I respected, a guy with 300K followers who'd been in the game longer than me. He said, "Hey, have you checked out this Seismic Fit guy? His content reminds me a lot of yours. Have you two talked about collaborating?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I wrote back, "We've talked. He's a fan. Appreciate the kind words about the similarity." I played it cool, because that's what you do when you're building a case. You don't tip your hand, you don't show your cards until the river. He started getting sponsorships from the same companies that sponsored me. I know because my sponsor rep called me one day. "Hey, just a heads up, we're working with this guy Marcus, Seismic Fit. His audience overlaps with yours, but he's reaching a different demographic. Just wanted to be transparent." "A different demographic," I repeated. "Yeah, younger, more male skew. Your audience trends a bit more female and slightly older." I pulled up Marcus's demographics. My audience was 60-40 male-female, ages 25 to 44. His was 70-30 male, ages 18 to 34. Same content, different packaging. Different enough to seem like a separate entity. Smart. Infuriatingly smart. "You know he copies me, right?" I asked the rep. Silence. Then, "We've heard some rumblings. But nothing concrete. I'll send you something concrete." I didn't. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready to play that card. Sponsors are fickle. They go where the numbers are. If I came at Marcus without an airtight case, I'd look like a jealous competitor trying to crush a rising star. The narrative would flip. I'd be the villain, the established creator trying to keep the little guy down. I needed to be surgical. Like Marcus was. Except my surgery would leave a scar. May 2024. Marcus hit 200,000 followers. He posted a celebratory video, 200K mission accomplished. In it, he talked about his journey, how he'd developed his methodology over the past year, how he studied the science and built something unique, how he stayed true to his vision, even when people doubted him. He never mentioned my name, never credited me, never acknowledged that his entire brand was built on my foundation. His audience ate it up. They saw a hard-working creator who'd earned his following through dedication and originality. The comments were full of praise. "You're the next big thing, bro. This is why I follow you. Original content every time. Nobody else is doing it like Seismic Fit. The Seismic system changed my training forever. Nobody else is doing it like me," I thought. That's the whole point. Another comment caught my eye. "I used to follow iron architecture, but this guy is way better. Same type of content, but more relatable." Same type of content, more relatable, because he was younger, because he was handsomer, because he'd stripped away 5 years of refinement and replaced it with a polished imitation. I sat in my office that night, scrolling through his page. My wife came in with a cup of coffee. She looked at my screen. "You're doing that thing again," she said. "What thing?" "The thing where you go quiet and your jaw gets tight, and I know you're planning something that's either brilliant or going to get us sued." "Probably both." She sat down next to me. "Tell me." I told her everything. The full scope, not just the content copying, the whole picture. The branding theft, the trademark style infringement, the free PDF that cannibalized my sales, the sponsors he was poaching, the comments from my own followers who'd confused his page for mine, the spreadsheet, the expo, the growth targets he'd hit with surgical precision. She listened. She's good at that. She listened for a long time. The coffee went cold between us. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to expose him." "How?" "Piece by piece. I'm going to make it so that every single person who looks at his page knows exactly where his ideas came from. And then I'm going to file every legal action available to me. Copyright strikes, trademark complaints, DMCA takedowns, and I'm going to organize my audience to report his content for intellectual property violations. Is that legal? Reporting violations is legal. Organizing people to report genuine violations is legal. What's not legal is what he's been doing for the past year. What's not legal is passing someone else's copyrighted visual content off as your own. What's not legal is creating a brand so similar to a registered trademark that it causes consumer confusion. She looked at me. You sure about this? I've never been more sure about anything. She squeezed my hand. Then do it right. Don't leave anything to chance. Don't give him a single angle to come back at you. That's the plan. I spent the next 3 weeks building the arsenal. First, the side-by-side evidence. I created a document, professionally designed, not some angry rant, that showed the evolution of Marcus's plagiarism. I hired a freelance graphic designer to lay it out. Clean, professional, PDF format, something that looked like a legal exhibit, because that's exactly what it was. I called it The Architecture of Theft, a documented case of systematic content plagiarism and brand infringement. Page 1, timeline. My original posts on the left, his copies on the right, with dates and a days until copy counter. The earliest gap was 7 days, the longest was 23, the average, 11. Page 2, branding comparison. My logo next to his, my color palette next to his, my merchandise next to his. Side by side, the similarities were undeniable. The geometric design language, the navy blue and white base, the orange-red accent, the clean, minimal aesthetic. Page 3, content comparison. 6 pairs of videos, my original thumbnails next to his, same layouts, same fonts, same color schemes, same poses. I'd even overlaid them at 50% opacity to show how precisely the compositions matched. The overlap was almost perfect, like tracing paper. Page 4, the meal plan theft. My blueprint C PDF pages next to his seismic shred guide pages. Same macros, same meals, same grocery lists, same portion sizes. The only difference was the branding. I'd highlighted the identical text in yellow. Page after page of yellow. Page 5, the voice analysis. I'd transcribed sections of my videos and his videos, shown how his phrasing, his structure, even his jokes matched mine. Paraphrased, but identical in rhythm and content. The shoulder joke, the appendix comparison, even the way he signed off videos. Stay structural, which was a direct lift from my stay iron. Page 6, the smoking gun. Screenshots of comments from my followers who'd confused his page for mine. Hey, did you change your name? Why is this on a different page? I thought this was iron architecture. Wait, is this the same guy? That page was the legal goldmine. That was the evidence of consumer confusion. That was what made this not just plagiarism, but unfair competition. Page 7 through 42, the spreadsheet. Every page of Marcus's content strategy, Q4 optimization document, annotated with my lawyer's notes. Highlighted sections, circled passages, arrows pointing to the most damning entries. Page 43, the expo. Photos I'd taken at the Fit Pro Summit. Marcus at the booth. Marcus wearing the Seismic Fit hoodie. Marcus delivering my methodology to a crowd of 15 people who had no idea where it came from. Page 44 through 47. Appendices. Full transcripts. Complete URL archives. Registration certificates for my trademarks and copyrights. I had 47 pages of evidence. I had it notarized. I had it timestamped by a digital forensics expert Dan recommended. I had it backed up in 3 locations, local, cloud, and a physical copy in a fireproof safe my wife bought at Costco. Dan reviewed it and called me back. This is the most thorough documentation I've ever seen from a client. You should have been a lawyer. I build things for a living. Dan, I know how to read blueprints. What's the plan? I'm going to publish this. On your page? On my page. All of it. For free. Think carefully. This is going to be public. It's going to be messy. He's going to fight back. He might try to countersue for defamation. He might try to claim you're harassing him. The internet doesn't always side with the person who's right. It sides with the person who tells the better story. My story is the facts. The facts don't need to be better. They just need to be true. June 15th. A Sunday. I posted the first piece. It wasn't the full document. It was a video, 5 minutes long. Calm, measured, professional. I sat in my home office, the one with the bookshelf full of fitness textbooks and the iron architecture flag on the wall behind me. Wore a navy blue shirt, spoke slowly, made eye contact with the camera like I was talking to a jury. Hey everyone, I started. "I need to talk to you about something that's been weighing on me for a long time. Most of you know I've been building this brand for 5 years. You've been with me through the garage days, through the first viral video, through the sponsorships and the merchandise and the late-night editing sessions. What you don't know is that for the past year, someone has been systematically copying everything I've created and presenting it as their own." I showed the first side-by-side. My volcano protocol video next to his seismic shoulder destroyer. Same exercises, same order, same set and rep schemes. Same exercises, same order, same sets and reps. He changed the name and the font, but the content is identical. Then the branding comparison. My logo next to his, my merchandise next to his. Geometric design, navy blue, white, orange accent. He changed the letter and shifted the color slightly, but the design language is the same. The aesthetic is the same. The vibe is the same. Then the meal plan. I spent weeks developing this meal plan, tested it on myself during competition prep, tweaked the macros for months. I sell it for $49 as part of my blueprint series. He recreated it, down to the grocery lists and portion sizes, and gave it away for free, directly cannibalizing my sales. I paused, looked directly at the camera. "I'm not telling you this to start a war. I'm telling you because you deserve to know where the content you consume comes from. I've spent 5 years building something original, and I'm not going to let someone else take credit for it." I ended the video with a call to action, not to attack Marcus, not to harass him, but to look at the evidence and decide for themselves. I'm not asking you to hate anyone. I'm asking you to think critically. Original creators deserve credit. That's all I'm saying. The full document, 47 pages of side-by-side comparisons, timestamps, and evidence, is available as a free download on my website. Read it, decide for yourself. I posted the full 47-page document as a free download on my website. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke up to 3,000 new followers and a DM from Marcus. "Bro, what the hell? We need to talk. This is crazy. Call me." I didn't respond, not yet. The video had 800,000 views in 12 hours. My comment section was on fire. People were outraged. Not just on my page, they'd taken the evidence to Reddit, to Twitter, to TikTok. Someone had made a side-by-side comparison video that got 5 million views overnight. Another creator with 2 million followers had shared my post with the caption, "This is why so many original creators quit. Watch this." The internet had found its new villain, and his name was Marcus Webb. I got messages from dozens of creators, people I'd never spoken to, people with bigger followings than mine. "I've dealt with the same thing. This happened to me last year. Thank you for speaking up." One creator, a woman with 800K followers, sent me a voice message. She was crying. I had a copycat who did the same thing to me, and I was too scared to say anything. "Watching you do this gives me courage." That message hit me harder than anything else, because I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about every creator who'd ever been ripped off and felt powerless. I wasn't just fighting for my brand. I was fighting for all of them. Marcus posted a response video that afternoon. It was not good. "Hey guys, so I've seen some stuff going around and I want to address it. Look, in the fitness industry, everyone inspires everyone. I've been inspired by a lot of creators, including Iron Architecture. His content is great, but my content is my own. My brand is my own. The seismic system is my methodology. I've put in the work, just like everyone else. This is just the nature of the industry. People share ideas, people learn from each other, and that's how we all grow." He didn't address a single specific piece of evidence. Not the side-by-sides, not the timestamps, not the branding, not the meal plan, not the spreadsheet. He gave a generic, "we all inspire each other" speech and hoped the internet would buy it. The internet did not buy it. My followers, and now a significant portion of the general fitness community, tore his response apart. They were meticulous, detail-oriented, relentless. They'd downloaded my 47-page document and were using it as a reference guide, like a textbook for a class called How to Catch a Plagiarist 101. Someone found Marcus's old pre-iron architecture posts and made a comparison video showing how dramatically his content style had changed after he started following me. The before and after was stunning. Bright, generic, forgettable content on one side. Dark, systematic, branded content on the other. The dividing line was the month he first commented on my page. Someone else discovered that his Seismic Shred Guide PDF had metadata showing it was created 2 days after my Blueprint C launch, not the weeks he claimed it took to develop. The creation date was right there in the file properties. Unforgiving, undeniable. Someone found a cached version of a now-deleted tweet where he'd said, "Studying this guy Iron Architecture's content strategy, dude has it figured out, going to apply some of his frameworks to my own stuff." Apply some of his frameworks became a meme overnight. It was on Twitter, on Reddit, on TikTok. People were using it as a caption for everything. Cooking videos, DIY projects, even a video of a kid who'd clearly copied his friend's homework. Applying some of his frameworks, the caption read. It had 10 million views in 2 days. Marcus deleted the tweet. But the internet is forever. The cached version had already been downloaded and shared thousands of times. Marcus's follower count dropped for the first time since he'd started copying me. 200,000 down to 195,000 in 2 days. Then 190,000. Then 185,000. The bleeding had started, and there was no tourniquet big enough to stop it. His engagement rate cratered. Videos that used to get 50,000 views were getting 5,000. Comment sections filled with references to my evidence. Did you apply his frameworks for this one too? Love the original content. Oh wait. Meanwhile, I was just getting warmed up. June 17th, Dan filed the first copyright strike. We'd identified 23 of Marcus's videos that contained copyrighted material. Not just similar content, actual copyrighted material. My educational videos specifically. The shoulder anatomy deep dive, the back anatomy video, the knee health series, the elbow and wrist mobility tutorial. Marcus had paraphrased the scripts, but the visual presentation, my diagrams, my whiteboard drawings, my specific slide layouts, my graphic design elements, were directly copied, frame for frame in some cases, and visual presentations are covered by copyright. The words can be different, but if the images are the same, it's infringement. We filed DMCK takedown notices for all 23 videos through the platform's intellectual property reporting system. Each notice included side-by-side comparisons, timestamps, and registration information for my copyrighted works. Dan drafted each one like a legal brief, precise, specific, impossible to dismiss. The platform reviewed the first 5 complaints and found in my favor. All 5 videos were removed. Marcus received a copyright strike on his account. 3 more strikes and his page would be permanently terminated. Platform policy, non-negotiable. Marcus appealed the strikes. The platform denied the appeal. He filed a formal counter notice, claiming his content was original. We responded within the required 10-day window with additional evidence, the spreadsheet, the timestamp analysis, the metadata from his PDF. The platform reviewed again. The videos stayed down. By the end of June, 18 of the 23 videos had been removed. Marcus had 2 copyright strikes. 2 down, 1 to go. But copyright strikes weren't my only weapon. I never rely on a single tool. Construction taught me that. You don't build a house with just a hammer. Dan filed a trademark infringement complaint with the platform's legal team. My Iron Architecture name and logo were registered trademarks, federal registration, USPO, the whole 9 yards. My wife had insisted on it during year 2, and I'd thought she was being overly cautious. She wasn't. Marcus's Seismic Fit branding was similar enough to cause consumer confusion. We had the DMs to prove it. We had the comments. We had the expo photos. We had a body of evidence that showed a reasonable consumer could believe the 2 brands were affiliated. The platform's trademark team reviewed the complaint. They looked at the side-by-side branding comparisons. They looked at the consumer confusion evidence, the DMs, the comments, the sponsor confusion, and they issued a formal warning to Marcus. Change your branding to eliminate the likelihood of confusion or face additional enforcement action, including potential account termination. Marcus changed his logo, slightly, made the S bigger, shifted the navy to a darker shade, removed the orange accent entirely. It wasn't enough, but it bought him time, or so he thought. What he didn't know was that Dan had also filed a separate complaint with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, in opposition to any future trademark registration Marcus might attempt. A line in the sand, a legal landmine waiting for him if he ever tried to formalize his stolen brand. July was the reporting campaign, and this is where I need to be very specific about what I did and what I didn't do. I did not organize a harassment campaign. I did not encourage anyone to send threatening messages, leave abusive comments, dox Marcus, or engage in any behavior that violated any platform's terms of service. I'm a creator, not a mob boss. There's a line between accountability and abuse, and I made sure everything I did stayed on the right side of it. What I did was provide my audience with factual information and encourage them to use each platform's built-in reporting tools to flag content that they believed violated intellectual property policies. That's not harassment. That's civic participation in the digital age. In my follow-up video, posted July 3rd, exactly 2 weeks after the first expose video, I said, I want to be very clear about something. I am not asking anyone to harass, threaten, or abuse Marcus Webb or anyone associated with him. That's not who we are, and that's not what this community is about. What I am asking is this. If you see content on any platform that you believe infringes on a creator's copyrighted work, you have the right to report it. Every major platform has a process for this. It's in their terms of service. Use it, not as a weapon, but as a tool. Report factual, specific violations. Provide evidence. Let the platforms make their own decisions. I provided links to each platform's IP reporting page, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. I provided a template for reporting, a factual, emotionless description of the violation type, the specific content in question, and a reference to the copyrighted original. No exaggeration, no hyperbole, no personal attacks, just the facts, presented cleanly. My audience responded, not with a mob, but with a movement. Thousands of people filed reports. Every report referenced specific evidence from my 47-page document. Every report was grounded in documented fact. Every report followed the template I'd provided. It was the most organized, most disciplined, most effective reporting campaign the fitness corner of social media had ever seen. Not a single report contained a threat or an insult. Not a single report was flagged by the platforms as abusive. Every single one was processed through normal channels. Marcus's remaining videos started getting flagged. Not all of them were taken down. The platform's review process is designed to prevent abuse of the reporting system itself. But enough were flagged and reviewed that his content was being algorithmically throttled. The system had flagged his account as potentially problematic, and the algorithm responded by suppressing his reach. His engagement plummeted further. Views dropped by 70% from their peak. Comments dried up. The algorithm that had once amplified his stolen content was now burying it. His follower count, which had been 200K at its peak, fell to 150,000 by mid-July, then 140,000. The exodus was steady and, at this point, self-sustaining. People were unfollowing not because of my call to action, but because they'd seen the evidence and made their own decision. They didn't want to support a plagiarist. Sponsors started dropping him. The supplement company that had signed him, the same one my rep had warned me about, pulled their contract publicly, posted a statement on their own page. We take intellectual property seriously. Effective immediately, we are ending our partnership with Seismic Fit. They even tagged me in the post. Whether that was solidarity or self-protection, I don't know. Maybe both. 2 more sponsors followed within a week. Then a third. Then a fourth. By the end of July, Marcus had lost every sponsorship he'd ever signed. The income stream that had justified his plagiarism in the first place was completely dry. He was bleeding from every wound, and I hadn't laid a single finger on him. I'd just shown people the truth. July 22nd. Marcus called me. Not DM'd, called. He'd gotten my number from somewhere, probably a mutual connection at the Fit Pro Summit. Someone who'd given him my card without knowing the full story. Hey, he said, His voice was different over the phone, smaller, thinner, like the confidence had been drained out of it. Can we talk? Marcus? Look, I know you're behind all this. The reports, the strikes, the video, the document, all of it. I didn't do anything illegal, Marcus. I reported violations through proper channels. I presented documented evidence to my audience and let them make their own decisions. The platforms made their own enforcement decisions. I didn't force anyone's hand. I'm going to lose my page. You have 2 copyright strikes. One more, and yes, the platform will terminate your account. That's their policy, not mine. I can't start over. I've put everything into this. You put everything into something that was never yours. There's a difference. Silence. A long, heavy silence. I could hear him breathing, shallow breaths, the kind you take when you're trying not to fall apart. I didn't steal anything, he said, but his voice cracked on the word steal. He didn't sound like a man who believed what he was saying. He sounded like a man reading from a script he'd written at 3 a.m. You copied my workouts, my meal plans, my branding, my presentation style, my educational content, my color palette, my logo design, my merchandise, my sign-off line. You gave away my paid products for free to undermine my business. You poached my sponsors with a brand built on my identity. You confused my followers into thinking your page was mine. You stood at an expo booth and taught my methodology to a crowd of strangers as if you'd invented it. What would you call that? He didn't answer. I'll tell you what I'd call it, I continued. I'd call it the most thorough, most systematic, most premeditated case of content plagiarism I've ever seen in the fitness industry. And I'd call it exactly what it is: theft. More silence. What do you want? He asked. The question was small, defeated, the voice of a man who'd run out of options. I want you to stop. I want you to delete every piece of content that's derived from my work. I want you to rebrand completely. Not a logo tweak, not a color shift, a full rebrand. New name, new aesthetic, new everything. And I want you to post a public acknowledgement that your content was heavily influenced by mine. Not inspired, influenced. Because there's a difference, and we both know it. I can't do that. It'll ruin me. It might. But it's better than the alternative. What's the alternative? The 3rd copyright strike. Then your page is gone. Every video, every post, every follower, gone. Then I file a formal federal lawsuit for trademark infringement and unfair competition under the Lanham Act. I'm seeking damages, legal fees, and a permanent injunction. You're looking at 6 figures in legal costs, a court order to destroy every piece of infringing content you've ever created, and a judgment that follows you for years. It will affect your credit, your employment, your life. Not just your Instagram life, your actual life. The silence that followed was the longest one yet. I could hear something in the background, maybe a TV, maybe traffic. The sounds of a normal life that was about to become very abnormal. You're going to ruin my life, he said. No, Marcus, you ruined your life. I'm just the consequence. He hung up. I sat in my office for a long time after that. My hands were shaking slightly, not from anger, from the weight of what I'd just done. I'd just told a man, over the phone, in a calm and measured voice, that I was prepared to destroy him legally and financially, and I meant every word. My wife found me like that an hour later, still sitting in the dark, phone on the desk. Done? She asked. Done. How'd he take it? Like a man who just realized the building he's standing in was built on someone else's foundation. She put her hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I know. Come to bed. In a minute. She left. I stayed. Not because I was savoring the victory, because I wanted to remember the feeling. The feeling of watching someone who tried to take everything from you realize they'd taken nothing at all. I didn't hear from Marcus for a week. During that week, the 3rd copyright strike landed. One of his remaining videos, a knee health tutorial that was a direct visual copy of my knee health series, right down to the whiteboard diagrams and camera angles, was flagged by a user, reviewed by the platform, and removed. Strike 3. The platform sent Marcus a formal notification. Your account has been flagged for repeated copyright violations. This is your third and final strike. Your account is now subject to permanent suspension per our intellectual property policy. He had 14 days to file an appeal. He didn't file one. Maybe his lawyer told him not to. Maybe he didn't have a lawyer. Maybe he finally understood that the evidence was insurmountable. On August 5, 2024, Marcus Webb's primary social media account was permanently removed from the platform. Every video, every post, every saved highlight, every follower, gone, like it never existed. The same sequence played out on the other platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. Dan filed complaints everywhere Marcus had posted infringing content, using the same evidence, the same side-by-side comparisons, the same legal framework. One by one, the accounts disappeared. TikTok was first. They're aggressive about IP enforcement. YouTube followed. Twitter was last, but it fell too. Within 3 weeks, Marcus Webb had no social media presence. Not a single account, not a single follower, not a single piece of the 200,000-person audience he'd built on my work. I checked his main page one last time before it went dark. The follower count had dropped to 127,000 from its peak of 200K, down 73,000 in 2 months. That's 73,000 people who looked at the evidence and walked away. His last post was a photo of an empty gym at night. No equipment, no people, just the lights and the mirrors and the silence. No caption, just the photo. I stared at it for a while. There was something almost poetic about it. An empty gym. A man with nothing left to lift. I almost felt something. Almost. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. My audience celebrated. They sent me messages of support, congratulations, validation. You did what needed to be done. This is why we love you. You protect your community. Justice served. This should be a case study for every creator on the internet. I appreciated every message. I read all of them. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a cleanup, like wiping the dust off a surface that should never have been dirty in the first place. My sales recovered. Blueprint C was selling again. Better than before, actually, because the controversy had driven a wave of new followers to my page. People who'd never heard of iron architecture were now discovering my content through the story. I hit 600K in September, 650K in October, 700K by the end of the year. But I didn't celebrate the numbers. Numbers are just numbers. What mattered was the principle, the idea that original work has value, that stealing someone's creative identity is not inspiration or influence, it's theft, and that there are consequences. A few weeks after Marcus's page went dark, I found his personal Facebook profile. It was private, just a guy with a couple hundred friends, posting occasionally about his dog, a golden retriever named Max, and his local basketball league. No mention of fitness, no mention of seismic fit, no mention of iron architecture, no mention of content creation at all. His cover photo was a sunset. His profile picture was a group shot from what looked like a family barbecue. He disappeared from the world he'd tried to steal, vanished like a shadow when the light gets turned on. I thought about messaging him, some kind of closure, no hard feelings, or hope you learned something. I even drafted a message in my head. Marcus, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you found something real to build. This was never personal. It was about the work. I didn't send it. Not because I was still angry, but because I don't think there were no hard feelings. And I don't think he learned anything. I think he just moved on to the next scheme, the next shortcut, the next person whose work he could borrow and rebrand. That's the thing about people like Marcus. They don't create. They consume. They don't build. They replicate. They don't invent. They imitate. And when you take away the thing they were copying, they've got nothing left. No ideas, no system, no voice. Just an empty gym and a golden retriever. Not the legal stuff. Dan can tell you about that. The real stuff. The stuff about human nature and the internet and what it means to build something that matters. First, document everything. From the very beginning, the moment you suspect someone is copying you, start a file. Screenshots, URLs, timestamps, dates. Every single instance, no matter how small. You never know when you'll need it, and when you do, you'll wish you'd started sooner. I started 8 months in and still almost didn't have enough. Start on day 1. Second, don't react emotionally. The internet rewards outrage, but outrage doesn't win legal battles. Evidence wins legal battles. Calm, methodical, airtight evidence. The kind that makes a lawyer say, "This is the most thorough documentation I've ever seen from a client." The kind that makes a platform reviewer click remove without hesitating. Third, use the systems that exist. Every platform has IP reporting tools, copyright strike processes, trademark complaint forms. These systems aren't perfect, far from it, but they work when you use them correctly. File factual, specific, evidence-backed reports. Not vague complaints, not emotional rants. Facts, dates, URLs, side-by-side comparisons. The platform doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about its legal liability. Give them what they need to act. Fourth, build your community before you need them. I spent 5 years building trust with my audience, showing up every day, being honest, being transparent, being real. When I asked them to act, they acted, not because I told them to, but because they believed in the cause. They could see the evidence. They knew I was right, and they were willing to stand up for the creator who'd spent 5 years giving them real, original, valuable content. Fifth, and this is the one that keeps me up at night, your work has value. Every video you film, every program you design, every word you write, every hour you spend researching, editing, filming, and posting, it has value, and you have the right and the responsibility to protect it. The fitness industry is full of people who think information wants to be free, and everyone copies everyone, and there's nothing new under the sun, and sure, on some level, ideas are communal. No one owns the concept of a push-up. No one owns the idea of eating protein. The basic building blocks of fitness are public domain, but the specific expression of an idea, the way you film it, the way you explain it, the brand you wrap it in, the system you build around it, the community you create, that's yours. That's your intellectual property. That's your livelihood. That's your identity. And if someone tries to take it from you, you fight. Not with anger, not with threats, with evidence, with systems, with the law, with the truth. 3 months after Marcus's page was removed, I got a package in the mail. No return address. A small bubble mailer. My wife almost threw it away. We get a lot of fan mail and she's careful about packages with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. 1 page. The handwriting was neat but shaky, like the person was writing under stress or hadn't written by hand in years. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve to be heard. But I need to say this because I can't carry it anymore. You were right. About everything. Not just the copying. I knew I was doing that. About the bigger thing. About having nothing of my own to say. I had a marketing degree and no ideas, no original thoughts, no creative vision. I found someone who had all 3, and I took the easy road. I told myself it was inspiration. I told myself everyone does it. I told myself you'd never notice, and if you did notice, you'd never do anything about it. I was wrong on all 3 counts. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness is for people who made a mistake. What I did wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. A calculated, deliberate plan to take what you built and make it mine. I deserve whatever happens next. I just need you to know that I know what I did. That's all. I need one person in the world to know that I know. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry anyway. No signature, but I recognized the handwriting from a contract Marcus had signed with a supplement company, a copy of which I'd obtained during the documentation phase. His signature was on the bottom of that contract. Same slant, same pressure, same slight rightward lean. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in my desk drawer. Not because I forgave him, not because I felt sorry for him, but because I wanted to remember. I wanted to remember what it looks like when someone who built nothing finally realizes they have nothing. I wanted to remember that the work matters, that the originality matters, that the 5 years I spent in that garage, filming with a broken ring light and a phone that kept running out of storage, that all of it meant something. That the late nights and the missed dinners and the herniated discs and the marriage that almost didn't survive, that all of it was for something real. And I wanted to remember that in this industry, where everyone is chasing the same followers and the same sponsors and the same viral moment, the only thing that can't be stolen, copied, replicated, or rebranded is the person who did the work. Marcus copied my workouts. He copied my meals. He copied my brand. He copied my colors. He copied my logo. He copied my voice. He copied my jokes. He copied my sign-off. He copied my system. He copied my aesthetic. He copied my entire creative identity and wrapped it in a different name and called it his own. But he couldn't copy me. And that's why I won. Edit. A lot of people have been asking about the legal specifics, so here's a brief FAQ. Q. Can you really copyright a workout routine? A. No. You can't copyright a list of exercises, and I never claimed you could. What you can copyright is the specific expression, the video production, the narration, the graphics, the diagrams, the written program as a literary work. That's what we went after. The exercises were the same. The way I presented them was mine. Q. Did you sue him? A. No. The platform enforcement was sufficient to achieve the goal. A federal lawsuit would have cost $50,000, $100,000 in legal fees with an uncertain outcome. The strikes, takedowns, and reporting campaign achieved the desired result more efficiently and at a fraction of the cost. Justice doesn't always require a courtroom. Q. Do you feel bad? A. I feel like I protected my work and my family's livelihood. The word bad implies I did something wrong. I didn't. He did, repeatedly, systematically, with full awareness of what he was doing. My only regret is that I didn't act sooner. Q. Would you do it again? A. Without hesitation, without a second thought, without losing a minute of sleep. Q. What advice do you have for other creators dealing with copycats? A. Document everything. Wait. Be strategic. Don't react emotionally. Build your case in the dark, then present it all at once, in public, with no warning. And use the tools the platforms give you. Copyright strikes, trademark complaints, IP reporting forms, they're there for a reason. They work, but only if you use them correctly. Q. Are you worried about retaliation? A. He knows what I have. He knows what I'm capable of. And he knows I haven't even shown everything. That tends to encourage good behavior. Edit 2. Yes, I know this is extremely long. No, I will not be adding a TL, DR. If you can't invest 15 minutes in reading a full post, you're part of the problem this story is about. Do the work. Read the words. That's the whole point. Edit 3. To the person who DM'd me saying I destroyed a man's life over some Instagram posts. You're right about the first part and wrong about the second. These weren't some Instagram posts. This was 5 years of my life, my family's income, my creative identity, and my intellectual property. He didn't copy some posts, he copied my entire existence as a creator and tried to replace me with himself. If you build a house on someone else's land, don't be surprised when they evict you. And don't expect sympathy from the homeowner. Edit 4. My lawyer has asked me to clarify that I am not providing legal advice in this post. Everything described here was done in consultation with a licensed attorney. If you're dealing with a similar situation, get your own lawyer. Don't take legal advice from a fitness influencer on the internet. That said, document everything. Start today. You never know when you'll need it. Edit 5. The golden retriever's name is Max. I looked it up. He seems like a good dog. I hold no ill will toward Max. Thanks for reading. Stay iron.